remember a cartoon from your childhood, but you're not sure it even existed? Not Pokemon, not SpongeBob, not the ones everybody remembers. I mean those weird cartoons buried so deep in your brain that they just sit there for years, taking up space. You remember flashes of them.
Who are you guys?
A character, a transformation, maybe a theme song. But if somebody asked you what the show was actually about, you'd have no idea. A few weeks ago, I remembered a cartoon called Mummies Alive. And all I could really pull from my memory was mummies, armor, ancient Egypt, and a theme song that had been apparently living rent-free in my head for years. That was it. So I went back to find it. And what I found was not the show I remembered.
Sit!
Now, to understand why a cartoon like Mummies Alive even existed, you have to remember what the late 90s looked like. This was a weird time for cartoons. You had Batman, Spider-Man, X-Men, Beast Wars, Animaniacs, Pinky and the Brain. Everything was either trying to be cool, edgy, funny, or all three at once. Kids had an insane amount of stuff to watch.
Mom, what are you doing here?
Which is why I keep imagining some boardroom in the 90s, a bunch of executives sitting around a table, looking at ratings, toy sales, and what was working on TV. Batman is huge, Spider-Man's taking over, Power Rangers is in a league of its own. And then someone stands up and says, okay, hear me out. Ancient Egyptian mummies, but they're superheroes. And instead of laughing them out of the room,
it is easier to hit a sprinting boar with a spear at 50 paces.
They said yes.
I'm Ja-Kal, this is Armon and Raph.
So where does Mummies Alive fit into all this? Well, at its core, the show follows a teenager named Presley Carnarvon who discovers he's the descendant of an ancient Egyptian prince. Unfortunately for Presley, an evil sorcerer named Scarab also finds this out. And Scarab, he's got one goal. Capture Presley, steal his life force, and achieve immortality. Which is a lot for a kid to deal with. Luckily, Presley's protected by 4 ancient mummies who once served as elite guardians in Egypt. Whenever he's in danger, they awaken, transform, and become armored warriors who spend most of their time ruining Scarab's plans.
I brought you through the Western Gate to hunt down Prince Ramses.
And if you were a kid in the 90s, this is probably the part you remember. The armor, the weapons, the transformations. That was the hook. The more I rewatched it, the more I realized this show is throwing everything at the screen.
Do I look stupid to you?
Ancient curses, magic artifacts, Egyptian mythology, undead warriors, sorcerers, gods.
I admire your spirit.
Does that mean you want to be my friend?
At times it felt like somebody took an Egyptian textbook, tossed it in a blender, and turned it into a Saturday morning cartoon. And somehow, it works.
Ready to rumble!
At least that's how I remembered it. Because in my mind, Mummies Alive was this dark action show, ancient evil, life or death stakes, undead warriors protecting their last heir to a royal bloodline.
I have no money.
But that's not really the show I
Must have
found.
a plan if he hopes to capture his prey.
I plan to kick Tut.
Because while it has all those ingredients of a serious action cartoon, it's also goofy as hell.
I'm an insurance salesman. Have you ever considered what would happen to your family?
The mummies argue with each other constantly. They banter, they crack jokes.
Can I go home now?
And the one I definitely misremembered the most was Ja-Kal. As a kid, I was convinced Ja-Kal was the leader.
I never used a spear such as this.
It's not a spear. It's a fishing rod for fly fishing.
He is not. But he absolutely acts like he is.
Be careful, my prince, when the young lion runs too quickly through the den. Oh, never mind.
And the other mummies are very quick to remind him of that whenever he gets too full of himself.
Dr. Doolittle, no animal stories right now.
And Armand is easily the funniest part of the entire show.
Did you see a concession stand when we came in? I could go for some popcorn.
He's incredibly strong, basically a walking tank.
I'm gonna work your body into such good shape that your wife won't be able to resist you.
But also completely clumsy and chaotic at the worst possible time. The kind of character who could punch through a wall and then immediately trip over nothing right after. Wrath is the more grounded, serious one.
You're starting to mildew.
And Nefertina is probably the one I remember visually the most, even if I didn't realize it at the time. And then you have Scarab, an immortal sorcerer who spends most of the show absolutely furious that these undead warriors keep ruining his plans.
4 against 1. It just isn't fair.
But the more I watched it, the more I realized something. Even Scarab isn't as serious as I remember. He's constantly frustrated, overreacting, and getting dragged into ridiculous situations. And then there's the mythology side of it, because this show really does lean into Egyptian mythology.
Oh, great. It's a bandage convention.
You've got gods, curses, artifacts, the underworld, characters like Set and Anubis.
Oh, my name is Anubis, and I'm a spirit of the underworld.
And what surprised me most about them is how they actually behave in the show.
I didn't do it.
Set is supposed to feel like this powerful, intimidating force. Anubis too.
Set.
I told you should have come before we left.
But instead of this calm, godlike presence, a lot of their scenes feel like two extremely serious characters trying to maintain authority.
He said Set, not Sit. That's my name.
While constantly second-guessing everything happening around them.
Let me know how it all works.
Stop it.
There are moments where they feel less like ancient gods and more like overly dramatic managers stuck in a meeting that nobody's prepared for. And once I started noticing that, I realized something. This show isn't just an action cartoon. It's a comedy hiding inside an action cartoon.
In our day, we put vagrants to work on the pyramids. Problem solved.
And that's the part I completely forgot. Because Mummies Alive is actually funny. Not accidentally funny, intentionally funny.
More lies and more lies.
The mummies argue, the villains get frustrated, everyone is constantly one step away from chaos, and the more I watched it, the more I realized the humor is probably what makes it work.
4 of them. 1 for each of... Never mind.
Because if it had played everything completely straight, it would have probably been forgotten. Instead, it leans into how ridiculous the idea actually is.
Honestly, they don't make demon spirits like they used to.
And that gives it way more personality than I remembered. So if it had all that going for it, why did it disappear? A big part of it is timing. It comes out during the most competitive era in cartoon history. There were just too many heavy hitters at once. On top of that, it only lasted 1 season, although it had 42 episodes. So it never really had the time to become one of those defining childhood shows. Instead, it just faded into the background. Not forgotten, just buried. The kind of show you don't think about for 20 years until you hear the theme song, see a screenshot, or stumble across it online. And suddenly, you're right back in front of the TV again. So was Mummies Alive actually good? I think that's the wrong question, because I don't think the reason it stayed in my memory was because it was the best cartoon ever made. I think it stayed because it was different. Superhero mummies, ancient Egyptian mythology, armor transformations, action, comedy. Just enough weirdness to permanently stick in my brain. It's not Batman, and it's not X-Men, and it's not one of those defining cartoons of the time. But it didn't need to be. It only needed to be memorable. And it clearly succeeded at that. So now I want to know, what's a cartoon from your childhood that you were convinced might have been a dream? Let me know in the comments, because something tells me Mummies Alive is not the only one.